a very warm welcome to another conversation on Chaichat&community. I'm Chris Malika Bhadra, and before we begin, I would like you all to remember for a minute that Dylan Alcott, the tennis champion, Paralympian, and disability advocate, has been named as the 2022 Australian of the Year. A wheelchair user, he has won 15 Grand Slam quad single titles and another 8 doubles. In 2021, he became the first man in history to achieve a Golden Slam, all four major single titles as well as gold at the Paralympics. On that note, I'm talking to two wonderful people today or tonight, depending on which part of the world you're listening to us from, who have not allowed a disability come in their way of success and glory. But before we start, I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we meet today, the people of the Kulin Nation. I also would like to pay my respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging. I'm super excited to be speaking with Virat Nehru and Maina Gordon. Both of them have joined us all the way from Sydney, and they have obliged us by sharing their inspirational journeys with all our listeners. I would like Virat, Maina, first of all, thank you so much for joining me on this chat today. How are you both doing? Anyone?
Thanks, Chris. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me again. It's a pleasure always. I'm glad to be part of the show. I'm glad to talk about a subject that I think a lot of people might be uncomfortable about, or maybe they're not uncomfortable about it, but we'll find out if they are. So
Yeah.
let's open the Pandora's box, as they say.
Before we move on to Maina, Virat, we would like you to tell us a bit about yourself to our listeners, and then I'll move on to Maina.
Sure, I guess a corporate hack by day and a creative by night is the best description I can give myself. It's sort of a Batman analogy. It's Bruce Wayne by day and Batman by night. So depends on which setting I'm speaking about. Then if I'm in a creative setting, then I'm a creative. If I'm in a corporate situation, then I'm a marketing copywriter, which for other financial industry services and stuff like that. So I moonlight as many things. I'm a film critic as well. I work in film services, trying to uh, get random world cinema to Australia. So the Oscar nominations are just out yesterday. So we're very excited to get some of the films to Australia as well. So a lot of things are happening, but it depends. It's very difficult. I haven't come up with a definition which can be concise. So that was a very difficult question that we started with this. I'm sorry about that.
Now, awesome. Thank you, Virat. We'll get to more of the conversation later, but first let me properly say hello to Mena. Mena, thank you so much for joining in. Needless to say, I was already impressed when I had the first phone conversation with yourself. But before I dig in more and more, I would love for you to share a bit about yourself to our audience and listeners.
Thank you so much for asking me to join you guys tonight. My name is Maina Gordon. I was born Maina Kelani, and I was born in Singapore. I came here 27 years ago.
Yeah.
No, no, not 27, 22 years ago. And to marry this guy, Indian Indian guy from Bangalore, but studied in US and worked in England, and then came to Singapore and met me, and 6 months later asked me to marry him. I'm a Cindy, so it was a bit difficult to say yes because I knew it was going to be a major hassle with my parents. So anyway, married him, two beautiful girls, developed MS, um, lawyer in Singapore, so we qualified here, um, and doing quite a bit of charity work, but still working as a lawyer. And this is me.
Thanks. Thank you, both of you. Um, it's such an inspiration to be just speaking with you. But before I get on to the actual questions, Virat, we have a comment for you to please be a bit more audible. So if you can please fix the audio, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Awesome. All right. Let's hit on to the conversation. The first thing that I would like to know from both of you is why does our society see a disability as a hindrance before looking into the potential of an individual? Why is any disability judged as a hindrance? Mena, I'll start with you first, and then Virat, I'll come to you.
All right. So, in my view, the number one, there's a big difference between a social model and a medical model.
Hmm.
You, as a doctor, would understand that, but perhaps I may have to explain.
Sure.
Okay, a social model is, let's go to the medical model because that started it first.
Yeah.
A medical model is you look at a disabled person or a person with a disability and say, oh dear, okay, now she's in a wheelchair, she needs to get healed, and we can't do much, so
Hmm.
we just make her comfortable, etc., etc. A social model, and for instance, um, they build buildings with steps and stuff with absolutely no consideration for people who can't get to the building. A social model is where you look at the building and say, oh, there's a problem here. And you look at the person in the wheelchair and say, the problem is not the person with the wheelchair. The problem is with the building. This person in the wheelchair needs accessibility to the building.
Hmm.
So that is the big difference that is now coming to fore, the social model.
Yeah.
Look at the surrounding, and the fault is not with the person who is disabled. The fault is things around you which are not friendly to you. Apart from that, Indians have this thing called karma. So there is this like, you deserve it because in your past you must have been a bad girl, and that's why you're not, you didn't get a good reincarnation. And to me, I think karma, I mean, I'm sorry, but I think karma is bullshit. I don't think it's random. You get diseases or get disabled
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
happens. Someone's
Hmm.
got to get it. I got it. So that's my view.
I have to say, you've got a very constructive view of looking on things. You've brought in the medical, the social model, and then you've pitched in a bit about karma and how that's always not applicable, right? Especially if somebody's got a disease where it's just random, somebody's got a disease. Virat, I would like to know from you first. Why do you think society takes a disability as a hindrance? And also, I would like to know your thoughts about these models that man has brought up, the medical, the social, and any other model that you would like to pitch in.
Sure, sure, definitely. I mean, I'll just continue on what Mena's point is about the social model of disability. For example, I think the problem is, given that we're living in late stage capitalism, uh, what that model allows is, or basically what our structures allow for, is the social utility model, right? Where we feel that every person has some inherent value that they have to give to the world, and capitalism defines value as productivity, whether you are a working part of the working workforce and what you're contributing as units per capita in terms of what value you bring to the world. Unfortunately, when you look at the world through that very narrow, constrictive lens, you can't allow for individual choices in case by case scenarios. And unfortunately, people with disability fall outside the mean. So you can't have a statistic that applies for, let's say, 90% of the people And then 10% of people who don't fall within that mean, they're considered to be outliers. And the social utility model will consider that to be okay. If it's maximizing social utility for 90% of the people, then the 10% of the people don't matter. And that's where we are right now. Not saying that people don't want to care about people with disability. I think everyone wants to do it, but doing something out of the goodness of your heart and having institutions that actually benefit you and remove those barriers and obstacles are totally different things. And unfortunately, the social model of disability is about that. It's about removing barriers to access. But to do that, it's a very case by case, individualized way of looking at the world, which unfortunately, in a very statistics kind of scenario, where you're looking at X% of people gives X amount of value to the world, what is productivity, what is efficiency, all these corporate buzzwords, jingle words about how we bring value and utility to the world. It's very hard to look at uh, basically what value can be outside of the capital system. Somebody who can be very creative but not make a lot of money is also inherently still producing value to the world. But late stage capitalism will not define that as value because it's not making any money, essentially. So if you can't bring in money, you're basically deemed essentially to be, I wouldn't say useless, but not productive, and that's not valuable for a late stage capitalism to see. It basically deems you to be a worker as a workhorse. Put your blinders on, work as much as you can till you die, mostly in debt, and then that's it, and you're done. There is no karma, there's no next life. You work till you're dead, and that's about it. It's the end. It may not be a good thing, but it's what life is. Or that's what we deem to be productive and supposedly what we should be aspiring for. I don't see how that's aspirational, but that's what we are told we should be aspiring for.
I have a quick question to both of you before we move on. That you mentioned about being productive, right? And bringing in product on the table and being of value. Who decides, who sets the benchmark of how a person is being productive or non productive? Apart from obviously the capitalization mindset, Mena, I would like to ask you first who sets the benchmark of how productive or non productive I am?
Okay, apart from the benchmark, if I may go before the benchmark. Now, for a disabled person to to okay, the equipment they have, the ability for them to to do good is it depends on the type of roads they can go travel on, the wheelchair, the electric wheelchair that they have, that they can get to the workspace and not create a problem.
Hmm.
If it's accessible, they can be there.
Yeah,
Um, we've got no problems with our brains.
exactly.
Disabled people. Look at Dale Alcott. Good Lord, he could do it because he was able to, because he had the right equipment and the right resources to do it.
Hmm.
It's unbelievable what he achieved. But believe it or not, there's so many disabled people who have achieved just as much and will continue doing so.
Yeah,
We just need to not limit ourselves because we don't need to limit ourselves. And we can create businesses. We can be very, I still pay heaps of taxes because that's the way I've decided to do. I've got disability insurance. I got, they, I had an inspector to find out what the hell was I doing. If I was so not able to do much, why was I making so much money?
hmm.
I mean, it really depends on the disabled person to just go push yourself forward and do it.
Exactly.
And at the moment, you have a bit of help. At least in Australia, we have help to do it. In India, look, we're talking about a culture which is so old. Asia, in America, there's no problem. it's all going to come to fore. We are moving ahead. We can move ahead. Unfortunately, slowly, slowly, we should catch this monkey. Um, your question is what was your question
Ah,
again?
you answered my question, Mana. I was just wanting to know who sets the benchmark for my productivity. You answered it very well. I'll move on to Virat. Virat, quickly, according to you, who sets the benchmark of how productive you are or how productive I am in the society?
I mean, quite simply, able-bodied people. It's as simple as that. I mean, isn't that the problem in essence? That able-bodied people set policies, set the benchmark, decide how lives for people with disability are supposed to function. I think that
Hmm.
is, in essence, the problem in a nutshell. That the lived experiences of people with disability aren't taken into account whenever we come up
Yeah.
with policies and decisions for people for disability. We are often parade for international people with disability. It's nice to have a nice parade and all feel guilty about ourselves and how little we have done year after year. But beyond that, we just put them back in the basement. It's like, you bring them out of the basement, celebrate them for one day, then put them back in the basement because we don't want to talk about that. So that's a social approach, at least from the able-bodied perspective about how we actually address these barriers. But Mena is absolutely right. It's up to people with disability to lead the charge and basically come up with solutions because they know best about what kind of solutions work for them. And even though lived experience is very different, what I experience as a disabled person can be very different to someone else. But still, I will have the root understanding of similar issues which will be same across the board. So I can still have
Yeah.
more empathy. I can come up with solutions which probably better help someone with disability. And I have to take the charge if I am in a better position. It's about paying it forward and putting back the ladder down so that somebody else can use that. Well, that's ageist again. Sorry, that's able-bodied again. Not putting the ladder back down, putting something accessible back down so they can use that to come up again. We have to come
Mm.
up with see, we have to come up with different languages as well and language metaphors to define things that we're using able-bodied language. It's a very interesting scenario.
Yeah, I like how you are kind of just directly going towards the able-bodied people and
And I
creating.
had to check myself as soon as I said that.
Now, Man, I want to come to you now that we've heard briefly that you've been a lawyer, but I want to know that you've been a lawyer, but then you were detected with MS. What was your journey like? It's been inspiring, but I want you to tell our audience how was it like?
Well, I suppose with MS, I was diagnosed 27 years ago. So, but I was a lawyer 37 years ago.
Hmm.
So when I came to Australia, I had to requalify, yes. Um, but I happened to be lucky. I got headhunted after I graduated
Yeah.
here by one of the top law firms. Worked with them for 2 years, thought it was bullshit because there was I mean, the Me Too movement should have been there then. There were problems, and I just decided it was better when I got pregnant and had my first child to work from home.
Hmm.
So I worked for 10 years, but again, because of all in my 2, 3 years in Australia, I had good knowledge of clients that I
Yeah.
could help. So I was given a lot of work from one insurance company. Um, I was working from home, but there I was getting work from an insurance company. And so I was okay. Then 27 years ago, I was diagnosed with MS. But then again, I was still walking around. You wouldn't have known it. Ended up with a walking stick. And that was something like, well, I've been on a wheelchair 14 years ago. And once I got on a wheelchair, but even with the walking stick, I was doing litigation. Going to court was an issue.
Hmm.
Um, So I decided that was it. I couldn't do it anymore. So I did conveyancing, which I can do from home. Um, so it was challenging. There were parts of things that I could not do.
Yep.
And of course, in a wheelchair, you just, it gets harder. So at the moment, my right hand doesn't work. I'm right handed. So I go to the bank and the bank says, fill in the form. And I say, no, I can't. Can you please fill it for me? And they look at me as if I'm like, oh my God, another disabled person. But and what? She's a lawyer and she can't write? But that's the way it is. Um, the thing is, you got to look at the mirror and it's you. You're still, you're still you. So you just ignore people who look at you badly. Doesn't matter. It's their problem, not yours.
Mm.
You're fine. You know you are fine. You march along. So that's my experience.
And I'm awed. I'm inspired. I'm awed, and I'm falling short of words. I don't know how to kind of wrap my head around your experience. And I'm in my mind. I'm thinking I whinge at my little issues that didn't cook and my laundry is not done, and now I will stop whinging for like another year or so. But without coming on to you, um, I want to hear your story and I want you to tell our listeners how is it being a part of the creative arts and the performing arts? And you've been a stalwart in like Sydney's theatre and art circles. Tell us about your journey.
Uh, Calling me a stalwart makes me like I don't know. I should have silver hair and like, a bit of a beard going on. So it's a fair way to go to be a stalwart yet. But I was basically so I have cerebral palsy. I've got CP. I was diagnosed pretty late as a child. Basically, what happened was my grandmother noticed that I was basically not moving any limbs. I used to just lay there on the bed, and by the time I was like 4 or 5 years old, when everyone was walking or anything, I wasn't taking any steps. So she was just like, something is off, uh, and so we hadn't figured out what was wrong basically at that point. And I was a very quiet child. I've always been a very well behaved child. I didn't cry or anything. Well, I didn't know that I was supposed to cry at that point in time. So that was the thing. At least that's what people tell me. So don't trust any parents when they tell you about what you were like when you were kids, because I don't trust that narrative at all. But at the same time, I think I was at that point I was diagnosed, and it was basically my motor functions on the left hand side, and it's entirely the left hand, left leg, and the left back muscles basically were all affected. I was basically it was a birth thing where I was a cesarean, and during the birth complication, it was basically because of that, I had all my motor function left hand side were affected because of lack of oxygen at that point in time. So it was a lot of physiotherapy as a child. I had made friends with so many physiotherapists. I also made sure a lot of physiotherapists ran away who I didn't like. So it was a constant stream of incoming and outgoing physiotherapists who used to say, I can't work with this child. And he used to say, your child is the loveliest person on earth. So you get both kind of references. Either I was an angel or I was the son of devil, basically. Depending on if I liked them, then I was very nice. If I didn't like them, then I was not nice to them at all. And I remember I used to be a very sarcastic kid. So the sarcasm comes even from a very young age to me. I think I built it up as a defense mechanism so that I could be the smartest person in the room before anybody else could tell me that I'm not smart. So I remember when I was because you had to give. I know it's not norm here in Australia, but in India you had to give entrance exams even to get into like kindergarten and class one and
Yeah.
two because it's so competitive. And I remember a teacher of a prestigious school, she had basically told my parents that I should be sent to a special needs class. That this school is not for me because it's only for normal people, per se. And I had overheard that when she was having a discussion with my parents. So when she was doing an interview with me, and she would ask me questions in English, I would pretend not to hear, and I would only reply in Hindi, telling her that मुझे तो कुछ समझ में नहीं आ रहा है आप क्या कह रहे हैं. So she would then switch in Hindi and try to ask me questions in Hindi. So I'd reply back in English. I'm sorry, I can't understand you at all. I don't know what language you're speaking. So
Oh,
I made sure I frustrated her. I made sure I frustrated her to the extent where she had to enroll me because she was like, it's impossible for me to interview this child. But clearly, he's smart enough to get on my nerves, so he must be knowing, what's happening. And I think this is the other thing. I'm not saying I won't say I'm lucky, but I am lucky in the sense that my disability is pretty visible. A lot of people have invisible disabilities, and it's very hard for them to explain, what is exactly wrong with them. And having that conversation can be slightly humiliating for those people, especially if you have to justify that you have a disability over and over again to people who will not accept that you have one. So I basically, when I start walking, it's very evident that I have a disability. So I've never had to have that conversation with people. So in that sense, I think I got the easy end of the stick. Not that there is any easy end of the stick, but all those conversations about the emotional labor of explaining your disability
Yeah.
over and over again is something I haven't had to do. So even then, when I started in the creative industry, the one thing I didn't want to do was basically only be that token, disability advocate and only work on stories and plays or short films or whatever which had a disability theme. I know the left is crazy about if you are an advocate of disability, you should champion those stories. I think that's bullshit. I don't really want to be a champion or the voice of a generation of my disability. As a disability advocate, it's nice if you are one, but I don't believe that that's the entirety of my identity. I just happen to have a disability, but I do so many things outside of that, and I think uh, I'm not saying that people should uh, that who basically feel that they are empowered by the identity of having a disability and being an advocate for better opportunities for people with disability, that they're not doing good work. They're doing splendid work. But as I said, everyone's individual experiences are different, and we shouldn't have the expectation that someone who has a disability should also be an advocate for other people with disability. I think everyone should do that emotional labor for themselves, and people should be smart enough to uh, let people exist without the expectation that I should basically hand a play card and a board which explains everything every time I have a conversation with someone.
You raise a very interesting point, Virat. You mentioned that since people who have an external disability, they are spared from explaining their situation to people because people can already see that, right? But what happens is, like, I'll tell about myself. It's not a major disability, but one of my eyes is a tad bit smaller than the other one, and I've heard umpteen number of questions through my ears. What happened? What happened? So I want to ask a question. There, have you guys ever faced that 0.01 percentage of the population who can see that you have an issue but still will come and sympathize deliberately? Maybe I don't know how much is the intention to help. Have you ever faced those people that, oh, Virat, I'm so sorry, all those type of questions that we don't want to listen? Mena, I'll quickly start with you and then Virat, I'll come to you. Mena, have you ever faced those people, oh, I'm so sorry, who just want to be sorry about the situation you're in?
I do go like at shopping centers. You have someone, you have a lady to say, "Can I buy you a coffee? I would love to sit with you," and that shows sympathy. Yes, but it also shows I don't have a problem. Maybe because I wasn't born disabled,
Hmm.
I just find it a, a way of them approaching you and showing you some love,
Yeah.
maybe they feel sympathy. So I don't mind. Sympathize with me. I don't give a stuff. You want to buy me coffee? I have the time. I'll have coffee with you. And then they develop into friends. They come over to the home and we become friends. But isn't that what normal, like able-bodied people do. They meet each other, they see someone, and they say, "Hey, let's have coffee," and then they have coffee, right? So
Mena,
just
they want a token disabled friend, so they can say in their friend circle that I also have a friend with disability. Whenever they name drop their hot takes about what disabled people go through, so they want to
Yeah.
just tick that off their checklist essentially.
oh yeah, but you know what? If they want to know about how you do things, it's good. Involve them because that's how they're going to know about other people who are disabled. We are normal. We are able bodied just as they are, except we're sitting in a wheelchair and except my arm doesn't work. So it's you got to see yourself as an equal person. I feel I don't think you should just say, "Oh, don't judge."
Yeah.
I don't think you should judge.
Mm, absolutely. Virat, I'll move on to you. Have you ever faced that kind of a conversation?
Oh my God, yeah, so many times. So I'll select ones which I love. I remember once I was walking in the man I would know this the central subway catch train. So there's a long underground tunnel subway to get
Mm,
to the station. And I remember I was basically minding my own business, had my headphones on, which is basically code for "Don't talk to me." You know, everyone knows that. If you have your headphones on, it's basically code for "Don't disturb me." I
yeah.
don't know. I don't want to have a conversation with anyone. I'm minding my own business, whatever. So I was walking, and this person taps me on the shoulder, and so I turn around and take off my earphones. So I've already done 95% of the work for him. I've taken out my earphones, and my smashing playlist of Kishore Kumar songs has been interrupted because of this person. So I'm already like very angry. It's like what's happened? So I turn around and then he says to me, "It's okay, man. Jesus is watching. He's looking after you." And then before I could even like register or understand what just happened, he just walked away. That's it. So it kind of felt like he'd done his inspirational deed of the day. He'd found the one disabled person that in his life for the day, given him the inspiration because he assumed on my behalf that I must be sad and completely depressed about my life choices and where life is taking me. And so he's given me his inspiration without me asking for it and just walked away before I could even respond. Like before I could even say hi, hello, there's no like actual conversation. He didn't even say hi, what's your name? At least some people try to at least pretend to care about you before they ask you the annoying question. I love the phrase the phrasing how it goes like sorry to bother you or sorry to ask you but and it's like anything after a but is like you should begin with the but. It's like sorry, I'm not a racist but I'm not a bigot but I'm just like no you are one just by qualifying that I'm not one but doesn't stop you from being an asshole. Essentially, that's what I feel. So that's what happened. But there's and just a slight content warning as well. Uh, there's been a lot of very graphic things that they told me as well. Someone who once told me casually that "Oh, if I had what you had, I would have killed myself."
Wow.
And
So go
so I was just like, I don't know how I'm supposed to take that. So
ignore
I think the
them.
good and the bad part about this is that people don't think that people with disability are really there. I've been there within a room where people are talking about me, and the conversations are completely audible, and I know they're talking about me, but they'll talk about you as if you're not in the room, and I'm just like, but I'm right here, guys. Why are you talking about me in third person? I am right here, just like do I not exist? And sometimes I do feel like people with disability don't exist because nobody really considers like when you go up to a normal person, like okay, normal once again, quote unquote. When you go to someone, usually it's you usually think about what is the decorum, what are etiquettes and manners you're supposed to be. You say hi, hello. These are things you usually think about. But when it comes to a person with disability, People just jump straight in to satisfy their curiosity as if it's a question that they wanted answered, and that's it. That was the end of the conversation. They have no interest in their life otherwise beyond that question of satisfying their curiosity and moving away and be like, oh my God, now my life has been opened or I've been inspired. Now I feel less sorry about my own life choices because I've just had a conversation with an actual disabled person and they must have it so tough, tougher than me. So I should feel very thankful about my life. I'm not an inspiration for anyone. I'm not inspiration porn. I'm no kind of porn, no inspiration or otherwise. So I mean, it's not a, I don't know. I feel like I'm an asshole when I want to be. I'm very thankful that I can be one. I am not always nice to people, and people are shocked when they find out that I can not be nice because there is this expectation that is placed upon people with disability that we are meek, that we don't have a voice for ourselves, we can't speak for ourselves, we can't stand up for ourselves. We need allies to speak on our behalf. I don't really need anyone to speak on my behalf. I'm very capable of telling people off when I want to, and I'm very capable of engaging with someone if someone makes the effort to meet me halfway. It depends on like who's really making the effort. Really.
Fair enough. Absolutely. Before we proceed on, I have a question. And what is normal people, Virat? I saw you quoting, unquoting quite a few times. So we want to know what is normal people.
I think it's just a definition that everyone has in their own mind based on their experiences that they come across, right?
Hmm.
So for a lot of straight people, other straight people are normal, and someone who falls beyond that, outside that mean, is a deviant or not normal, essentially, right? It's a sexuality. It could be with disability. It could be with whatever your experiences have taught you, and that has been enculturated with time that this is what the world is like. And unfortunately, it takes a lot of unlearning to come to terms with the fact that the world is not always just what your perspective shows you. And unfortunately, which is why what we are facing today in the 21st century is exactly that problem. Everyone is so convinced that their worldview is accurate and correct that they're not willing to come to a negotiating table with an open mind. That's not it. That's a political problem. It's a sexuality problem. It's a disability problem. It's a problem that it stretches across spectrums. Because people have these definitions of what they consider, because I have seen this and only this in my life. This is how the entire world should be, and the entire world should function as per my worldview,
Yeah.
and that's normal. Today.
Yeah, that's a common, I think, a bias most of us have in our minds, and we are not ready to let go of the bias. I think that's the major issue. We want to harbor it more and more. Um, the next thing that I want to know from both of you is, for anyone who's trying to cope up with his or her or their disability, do we have enough resources out there in the community, like literature or anything, to help an individual come to terms with their disability? Mana, I'll start with you first.
All right, I belong to many groups. Cancer, because I've had cancer.
Hmm.
Um, MS, because I've had MS. Um, Also, the main thing now, which answers your question, I'm part of something called Diverse Disability Alliance.
Hmm.
We are a group of people. Um, it's a user-led disability support organization run by people with disability for people with disability. What we do is we support and learn from each other. We advocate for inclusive, diverse, and just society. We don't want to be helped or patronized. We will continue to fight for the right to be supported so we can be fully contributing members of society. We welcome new members. We are diverse in the sense that we are a diverse community. We've got Vietnamese, Port, um, Malays, Indians, um, Koreans, you name it, we've got them. Iranians, um, any number of people, and it was developed in 2014.
Yep.
And what we do is we teach each other, and um, we are peers. We call ourselves peers, and we meet for coffee when COVID didn't strike, but these days we have lots of Zoom meetings where we have meetings and we teach new new disabled people to join us and learn from us, and we
Mm.
learn from them. So this is what we have, and I think it's an amazing group. When
Yep.
I went first for a seminar, I was blown away by the intelligence, the ability to do much, 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 much more than I thought was capable, that I was capable of. Um, then again, you have NDIS. NDIS is an organization. Is supports us to live a better life, and you have carers to help you do many, many things. Um, I think in Australia, I think we're doing good.
Mm.
Could be better, but it is better than before,
Yeah.
better than the past.
Mm.
And we're moving forward to better and better things
Yes.
with this organization, Diverse Disability Alliance. And if anyone who is listening to this and wants to join, there is no problem. We we appreciate, we will help anyone who is diverse and disabled, and this is a good community to talk to. So I'll give Chris the details,
Yeah.
and you can just join us.
I was about to say the same thing to you, Manna. Once we are done, when we release the conversation, I'll take the details of you and put it under the chat so that anyone who wants to reach out either to yourself or to the organization directly can do that. That was wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, Manna. Virat, I'll come to you. Do you reckon that there's enough community resources or information or help available for anyone trying to cope up with their disability?
I'm not sure about enough. There can never be enough. But what I do feel that what helped me during my university days, there's an organization called AND, Australian Network of Disability, and they have a lot of resources, especially aimed at people with disability, connecting them with employers. They have a program called the Stepping Into Internship Program, where they have tie-ups with other corporate organizations, where the internship programs are specifically for people with disability, and they try to
Yeah.
place you with your eventual subject areas and whatever kind of work areas that you're interested in. And I think that is a fantastic initiative. It's helped me and a lot of other people as well, I know. And that was my first exposure to getting corporate experience while at university, and that was very helpful to know that there is life for me beyond my degree, because there is during that time you're quite unsure as to what life is going to
Yeah.
be thrown at you once you finish your degree, and by the time you finish your degree and you're out there in the world, it's quite late to figure things out. So I think it was instrumental for me to have that experience while studying in my last 2 years of my studies, and I think and was exceptional in that kind of partnering in leeway. But they also have other resources around different types of disability. I know there is Cerebral Palsy Alliance, and I used to donate to them as well. And there's also the Stepping Initiative, where you take a number of steps. I think during September, as they call it, for cerebral palsy specifically, which is taken off. It's not as popular as some of the other initiatives like the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge and others. But September has definitely taken off in the Australian context around raising awareness of cerebral palsy and stuff. So that's good. But I don't think the issue is around awareness. Everybody knows what a disability is, and how it affects people. They know someone or they have gone through that experience
Yeah.
themselves as well. It's not an issue around that. It's about, can we take tangible action to address institutional barriers for people who are not quite there yet in terms of access to certain things that they want, and give them the empowerment and confidence in their own life that they are, on equal terms with other people. Some of that comes from within yourself, and some of that comes from society reinforcing the positive messages and your environment around you that can tell you that yes, you are worthy, that we do care about you, and what you are contributing to the world is of value. And unfortunately, a lot of people, they might have the internal confidence, but their environment doesn't tell them that. And I would say that it takes probably a lot more internal courage to not lose that faith. And everyone will have their own journey to get to that point. But if you do have it, the resilience that you build up is probably a lot stronger than a lot of other people as well. So there is that flip side of that. I'm not sure whether that's the positive flip side, but there is a flip side to that. Not, I wouldn't recommend that everyone should go through that experience, but if you do happen to go through it, you'll come out the other end a lot stronger, a lot more confident in your own abilities. And I think this is the other thing. Should we call it a disability or not? Because
Yeah.
essentially it is about your ability to do things and not the negation of it eventually. And like Mena said, it's all about what you can contribute to the world and what you bring to the world yourselves. And look at it in a more positive aspect than this negative framing that is often done of people with disabilities. So, yeah, that's about it.
I have a
It's about
question
changing
for both.
mindset.
Yeah, sorry, Virat. I have a question for both of you. I think this question relates to the biases we were talking about earlier when it comes to viewing people with disability, or kind of, a lot of unlearning that we discussed earlier. So the question is, who decides these? Are we still talking such things in the 21st century? Mena, I'll start with you first, and then Virat, I'll come to you.
Sorry, what was your question?
The question is, if you talk about certain biases going on in somebody's mindset or in the society, then who decides these biases? And are we still talking about these things in the 21st century?
Well, we are in the 21st century, aren't we? And we're still talking about it, you and I. And I mean, this is a thing. Look, it will continue. It will continue for a while yet. We have to change. We People have to understand who we are, and at the moment, we just have to. Disabled person, people got to have each other, got to support each other, and teach each other to kick butt. Um, we have to educate people.
Mm.
Unless the education takes place, it's not going to change.
Yeah.
So have a coffee with them. Come on, talk to them.
Mm.
We're just like them.
Wonderful. Virat, your thoughts? Are we still discussing biases in the 21st century?
I mean, we are to a point because I think people are just naturally afraid of anyone and anything that is different, that doesn't match their preconceived notions of how they have grown up and experienced
Yeah.
the world. We have a massive fear of the unknown, and not in a positive sense. We're not curious about the unknown, we are terrified of it. We're terrified of anyone who speaks differently, anyone who looks different, anyone who is slightly taller than us. We reject so many marriage proposals because someone is not the right height, right? Someone doesn't have the right caste, doesn't have match whatever. So I mean, we have this natural fear of difference, and as human beings, we have the capacity to be more empathetic and embrace that difference and understand that we are a varied species and we have varied experiences, and actually embrace it in a positive sense. But unfortunately, time and time again, what we've we've understood about ourselves is that we choose the other alternative, which is to drive those people away, to further alienate people who are different, to further basically put everything that we don't like in, under the carpet. But this doesn't exist. It's not a problem. It's not something that needs to be addressed. And until that mindset changes, and it's not just about disability, it's about a whole heap of things. It's a mindset change that has to apply to everything in our lives. Anything that is different, our first reaction is to be running the other way. I'm not going to even have a conversation with this person because they might be an alien or whatever. So at that point in time, it becomes difficult to just come to the negotiating table on the same terms as another person, with the same respect as another person. That is what the whole discussion is about. It's not about anything else. We're not demanding the moon, though that would be nice. But we need the moon up there for gravity reasons. Otherwise, we're all going to die. So we are demanding basic respect on the negotiating table, treating us like anyone else. But unfortunately, that seems basic to us. But what I've realized is the ask is massive. Because what we're asking people to do is to change their hardwired default mindsets that they've grown up with their entire lives.
Yeah.
And that's not easy. And that is the emotional labor, which probably will need to be done over and over again. Sometimes I have the capacity to do it. Other times I just say F off. I mean, and both responses at certain points in time, depending on your elasticity and emotional bandwidth, are fine. So it all depends. And I really feel it shouldn't be only the people with disabilities who do that emotional labor over and over again, because that is, even anything else, that is probably the most taxing thing. And I don't have the resilience that Nana has, or maybe I don't have the patience that Nana has about grabbing a coffee every time and basically giving someone that time. I wish with time and with age I become more patient, but it's totally possible I might become more bitter. So it can go either way. The crossroads is in front of me. We'll find
Um,
out in 20 years. Who knows?
yeah, yeah, surely in 20 years we'll find. But you know what, guys? This is a very important conversation that does not end with just one discussion here. It has to be an ongoing chain of dialogue, right? But unfortunately, today we have to wrap up the conversation here. But before I formally wrap up the conversation, you guys are successful in your own ways, in your own words, in your own fields. What would be the last message that you would like to give out to our listeners? Virat, I'll start with you first, then I'll end the loop with Maina.
I mean, I've done a lot of preaching to the crowd who's probably not going to take any help out of it. So I'm probably going to reach out to people, someone with a disability who might be listening at some point in time. I would just say that listen to yourself, know yourself. Nobody in the world knows you as well as you know yourself and what your requirements are. And come up with your own coping mechanism. It doesn't have to match someone else's, and it doesn't even have to be healthy in the short term. It just needs to work for you at that point in time, and eventually you'll figure things out. Eventually, you'll find out what your strengths are, how you work as a person, what makes you who you are, and that journey of finding out about yourself. Fortunately, as someone with disability, starts at a lot younger age than maybe a lot of other people who go through an emotional midlife crisis. I can guarantee you will probably never go through an emotional midlife crisis because you've already had so many crises before. So you've dealt with practically everything you needed to deal with in your life. And when you come to that understanding about who you are as a person, that will be so fundamentally secure and give you so much strength that you would know exactly what to do and what drives you, what annoys you, and what kind of person you are, and what kind of people you want to surround yourself with. Because eventually, that is what it is. It is about people and the people you surround yourself with. If you are with the right people, with the crowd that supports you and encourages you, everything is nice. If you are with people who probably bring out the worst in you, it's probably time to look for a change. That's all.
Thank you. Very well said, Virat. Golden words as always. Mana, I'll come to you about a message that you would like to give out to our listeners tonight.
To other people, other disabled people, right?
Anyone.
No. Well, anyone, look at what you have, not what you do not have. It is given to us to choose what each moment of our life should be. Yes, there are constraints. You have your body grows older, there's ill health, and you think, oh well, this is pain. No wife, no husband, everything is a problem. Everyone has a problem, but there are constraints. The body, but at each moment there is an inner freedom of what one is. Is the brain caught up in a cycle of grief? Always, you know, always visualizing that, oh, this is a problem, this is a pain.
Yeah.
There is a part of the brain that you can live differently because you know what? You are the creator of your life.
Mm.
Whatever you want, you can get. So go get it. You can get anything you want. Create it. That's all I have to say.
That one last line was like covered the entire conversation, and it was like a beautiful way to close off the conversation. A big thank you to both of you. I know it's like Wednesday night, must have been very busy, dinner time, pre-dinner time, but thank you so much for giving us your insight, a peek into your journeys and experiences. I'm sure the listeners and our audiences on Word Palette must have had a lot to take away from your conversations tonight. And for anyone who wants to connect with the organizations that Naina mentioned, we'll be posting the link. So if you have any questions, if you want to get in touch, please feel free. We will take you from there. And I'll be back shortly with another conversation on Word Palette. Till then, we are living in very difficult and troubled times. Please stay safe and keep loving the people around you. We need more love in this date and time. Thank you so much. Have a great night, everyone.